Good morning. I'm Rev Myron. I'm a minister through Pathways of Light, and I've been a Course in Miracles student for 40 years. What I'm doing this year, as I've done before, is to go through the lessons, asking Jesus to clarify them for me, and then writing whatever comes into my mind. So today, what we are looking at is Lesson 13. A meaningless world engenders fear. Today's idea is really another form of the preceding one, except that it is more specific as to the emotion aroused. Actually, a meaningless world is impossible. Nothing without meaning exists. However, it does not follow that you will not think you perceive something that has no meaning. On the contrary, you will be particularly likely to think you do perceive it. In this paragraph, we read that a meaningless world is impossible, that nothing without meaning exists. This in spite of the fact that we've been talking about meaninglessness since lesson 10. There is a reason that what we see is meaningless, even though a meaningless world is impossible. What we are experiencing is not real. It is an illusion. In this illusion, we decide what it is we want to see, and then we see it. And thus we think we have perceived something without meaning. We did this with the tiny mad idea that we had changed God's creation. We continue to uphold that idea moment by moment, even now. How exhausting this must be. Paragraph 2, recognition of meaninglessness arouses intense anxiety in all the separated ones. It represents a situation in which God and the ego challenge each other as to whose meaning is to be written in the empty space that meaninglessness provides. The ego rushes in frantically to establish his own ideas here, fearful that the void may otherwise be used to demonstrate its own impotence and unreality. And on this alone, it is correct. Next, Jesus tells us that the recognition of meaninglessness arouses intense anxiety. By this time, this statement probably doesn't surprise anyone. What we say next, however, is stunning. Jesus says a reason meaninglessness causes so much anxiety is that we think we must rush in and give it meaning. We believe this is true because if we don't give it the meaning we want, the truth will be written there. And if that happened, our play in the illusory world would be over because we would no longer be able to believe what our eyes show us. Paragraph 3, it is essential, therefore, that you learn to recognize the meaninglessness and accept it without fear. If you're fearful, it is certain that you will endow the world with attributes that it does not possess and crowd it with images that do not exist. To the ego, illusions are safety devices, as they must also be to you when you equate yourself with the ego. So Jesus tells us that this is a reason we must learn to recognize the meaningless and accept it without fear. If we're afraid, we will keep the world going by endowing the world with attributes it does not possess and crowding it with images that do not exist. He says that these are safety devices that keep the illusion in place. They defend us against the love of God, and that love of God is so compelling, we would gladly give up the world to be in his heart again. What are these attributes we endow the world with? Well, I think of ways I thought of the world in the past. I have sometimes seen it as lovely and exciting and fun. I've also seen it as threatening and fearful and ugly. None of these attributes is real, and the world is neutral. I give it those attributes. I tell myself that I see beauty or ugliness, and my mind then reports on it. But the truth is, I decide the world is beautiful or I decide it is ugly, and then I instruct the eyes to show me what I want to see, beauty or ugliness, according to my present moment desire. And what are the images we crowd the world with? It's images of bodies and cars and trees. It's the images of chaos and drama and conflict. The analogy I use for my mind to absorb this is one of a blank screen, which we call the world, on which we separated ones project ideas in our mind of things we want to see. We project death and grief and sorrow that and the sorrow, of course, that accompanies it onto this blank screen. Our screen allows many dimensions, including all the body senses and the emotions appropriate to the situation. But every single image represents separation from God, and so every image ends in suffering and intense anxiety. Seeing it in this way allows me to see it without fear. We, the ones doing the projection, are unaffected by our projections, which, after all, are just images of ideas in our mind and not anything real. We are still as God created us, no matter what we witness on the screen, no matter what feelings we experience from that witnessing. So paragraph 4, the exercises for today should be done with 3 or 4 times for not more than a minute or so at most each time, or to be practiced in a somewhat different way than the preceding ones. With eyes closed, repeat today's idea to yourself, then open your eyes and look about you slowly, saying, I am looking at a meaningless world. Repeat this statement to yourself as you look about, then close your eyes and conclude with, a meaningless world engenders fear because I think I am in competition with God. You may find it difficult to avoid resistance in one form or another to this concluding statement. Whatever form such resistance may take, remind yourself that you are really afraid of such a thought because of the vengeance of the enemy. You are not expected to believe this statement at this point and will probably dismiss it as preposterous. Note carefully, however, any signs of overt or covert fear which it may arouse. This is our first attempt at stating an explicit cause and effect relationship of a kind which you are very inexperienced in recognizing. Do not dwell on the concluding statement and try not even to think of it except during the practice periods. That will suffice at present. These decisions are made quickly by the mind, and just as quickly we choose not to remember that we made them. We do this because we want to reserve the right to be a victim and unfairly treated. We want the world to remain the screen on which we project the images of our discontent, and the place where we find someone or something on which to project our guilt, both the conscious and unconscious guilt. This is why Jesus points out that we may feel resistance in the form of fear to the concluding statement. Just use it anyway. A meaningless world engenders fear because I think I'm in competition with God. Thank you for watching my video. And if you found this helpful, please like it and subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow.